Hello! Welcome, welcome. We are so excited to have you joining us at this special live broadcast. I am here in the beautiful home of Jennifer Ann Mackley, and we are excited to make an announcement. I am Lexi, and I am the Communications Director, and I am here with Jennifer Ann Mackley, our Executive Director for the Wilford Woodruff Papers Foundation. And we are here this lovely evening, excited to tell you all a breaking news announcement. So Jennifer wrote a book, The Wilford Woodruff Witness, and she released a second edition. So we are excited to be here tonight and learn a little bit more about this book, why she wrote it, and why you want to read it. So we'll jump in. Jennifer, first of all, thank you for meeting with me and answering some questions. And tell us a little bit about why did you write a book about Wilford Woodruff?
So I have my mother to thank for that. She told me the story of Wilford Woodruff's vision of the founding fathers in the St. George Temple, and my curiosity about that experience led me to start studying just who they were and why they chose Wilford Woodruff. The picture behind us might illustrate part of that.
A great picture.
So most of you would be familiar with this picture that is of the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and understand who those signers were and why they were important. So it was 1877 when Wilford Woodruff was in the St. George Temple, and so it would have been a time when they were celebrating the 100 years of independence. And this is the painting that hung in our house. So if you see George Washington in this picture, he's exact replica of the one of the signers. And so my curiosity led me to read about them, and then led me to wonder why Wilford Woodruff, what he had to do with this whole scenario, meaning why they would come to him and ask that their temple work would be done. And in researching that, I began to understand the development of temple doctrine itself and how he played a role in the 1830s, the 1840s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, from the Kirtland Temple to the Nauvoo Temple to the St. George Temple and then the Salt Lake Temple. And that explains his pivotal role in those, but also what he was doing in the St. George Temple at that time. And it turned into a 400-page story.
And how long did it take you to write that? That sounds like a lot of research.
I initially started researching not to write a book, just my own curiosity, and the book came about just not being able to find it written down anywhere else. And I thought, after 15 years of what I had read and what I had learned, save everybody else the trouble and put it in a book. So.
Yeah. And it's a great book. Love it. So now we have a second edition. So tell me, why a second edition and what's different? What can our audience get from this new edition?
So again, not to date myself, but I started studying this in the 1990s when the church history library had not digitized documents, and the Joseph Smith Papers didn't exist, josephsmithpapers.org online. And of course the Wilford Woodruff Papers wasn't started until 2020. So the combination of all those documents was either going to the library in Salt Lake, or finding other researchers who had studied these things and be able to access their information. And now we have not only the church history library documents that are accessible online, so you can see the original documents, but with the Joseph Smith Papers and the Wilford Woodruff Papers, those documents have now been transcribed. So you can read them, which before it was handwritten and faint, very difficult to read. But also, for example, Wilford Woodruff, his documents are in 8 different languages. So he wrote in shorthand and English and Hebrew and Latin and Greek. And so having the access to them was one thing. And before, the references in the back, there's about 100 pages of references in the book, and those were to static documents. So now they're live links and to live documents that are make it so much easier to understand the context and additional study.
Yeah. Well, and that tells us about the updated links. I love that. But now there's an audiobook that you can just click on the link on that ebook. Tell me more about that.
So initially in 2014, the book was published in English, and then in 2015 it was published in Spanish. And now this month the English print and now ebook and audiobook are available, and next month the Spanish ebook and audiobook will be added. And part of that, the incentive for that was over the past 8 years, people have reached out and just said, you know, I'm in Saudi Arabia, or I'm in Mexico or Chile or whatever, and the shipping is difficult. But also some countries don't allow religious books in, physical books. So being able to access those, you know, in an ebook or audiobook is one thing, but also half the church speaks Spanish. And so to be able to access that in your own language is really makes it easier to understand, and just opens up a whole, you know, another half of the church. So
I know I'm specifically excited about the audiobook, because with life today, it's so easy just to have an audiobook in your ear while you're driving or cleaning, and then I can hear those inspiring words of Wilford Woodruff. And there's so much in your book that is relatable to our own lives. And that's what I love about it, is I can read a story about Wilford, or I can read some of his writings, and even though it was so long ago, it still pertains to me today, and I can get, it's just nice to know that you're not alone in all the hard things that we go through. So tell me, what is one of your favorite stories of Wilford Woodruff?
I have a lot of favorite stories. And he went through separation and loneliness and depression and divorce and
almost dying. I can't even count how many times.
And losing his wife. Several of them died before him, and 13 of his children. And so he went through a lot of things that we experience today. But I think what's amazing about him is he's so relatable. He's just a normal, hardworking father and brother and son, and he was a church leader, but he was also he was a farmer, he was a rancher, he was a horticulturist. So one of the stories that popped into my head was when he, in the 1880s, there was so much persecution due to polygamy that a lot of the church leaders they would move from place to place, city to city, they'd live in other people's homes. And at one point, Wilford Woodruff actually lived in the St. George Temple. And legend or not, this is the story, one of the members of the church was praying, giving the prayer for the meeting, and the federal marshals were in the meeting. And he said, and please bless President Woodruff, who's in the St. George Temple, that he'll be safe. And so, I mean, it was, you know, sincere, but just told them exactly where they were. Anyway, they whisked him away by carriage in the night to go south to live somewhere else. So, but his dedication was full-time, 7 days a week, and he did live in the temple for quite a long time, which is an experience that I would love to have. But
me too. If only I could be in the temple more often. That's beautiful. Well, you can find all these stories and more in your book. So where can you purchase the book?
So it's available at True Desert Book. They distribute it, and the ebook, the audiobook, and the print book are available there. But it's also on Amazon.com, so through Audible and Kindle, all of those other options. And there's both the English and Spanish will be available in both places.
That's great. And if you have a membership like I do to Deseret Bookshelf, you can right now access the audiobook for free, and the ebook's on there as well. So that was exciting for me that I have access to that all day whenever I need a minute to listen to something. Okay, and she told you it's available, but if you want to know where those links are, you can go to book.wilfordwoodruffpapers.org, and you can find all the information about the book, some reviews, and the direct links to purchase it. So all this work that you did to write a book, and then you realized, you know, the world wants to see this as well. And then you created a nonprofit, a foundation. So tell me more about that and where people could find more information, see the actual documents, and dive in.
So the Wilford Woodruff Papers Foundation was started in 2020, and it's a nonprofit. It's patterned after the Joseph Smith Papers, but it's not under the church umbrella, I guess you'd say. So It's at wilfredwoodruffpapers.org, and you can not only see the images, the original images of his documents, and they span 1828 to 1898, but also the transcription. So it's side by side where you can check our work, I guess. And then within those, the names of the people that he interacted with are tagged so that you can click on them and then see their biographies and how they connect not only to Wilfred Woodruff but to other people in church history and what role they played. So it's a story of the 19th century. It adds another 50 years to the Joseph Smith foundational story of the restoration of the gospel. But Wilfred Woodruff's eyewitness account extends not only during the time that Joseph Smith was alive, but also an additional 54 years, and extends the understanding of truly what developed over that time period and how it developed, how they learned the process of revelation and the process of faith and the process of salvation, and each of those steps along the way it's an eyewitness account in his own words. Yeah. So it's truly a remarkable record.
And I love all this progress that you've been making with tagging the documents and making them accessible, and the new partnership with Family Search. I know I got an email a couple months ago that told me that some of my ancestors were in the papers, and I could go to it and click right on it and see. So if you want to learn more about the foundation or see if your ancestors are in the papers, you can go to wilfredwoodruffpapers.org. Jennifer, it is such a privilege to talk to you. Every time I get to, it's like a walking encyclopedia, and I always learn something new, another story about Wilfred Woodruff. And I know I speak for everyone when we are so grateful for the many years and time that you took researching so that we didn't have to, and that it is all here in her book. If you want to get a copy, the second edition is out, print, ebook, audiobook. Look forward to Spanish coming out in January. And again, you can find all that information at book.wilfredwoodruffpapers.org. Okay, well, thank you for joining me, and
Thanks.
You all have a wonderful night.